Good afternoon from the Vagabond Expedition Jeep Wrangler. We're out here in British Columbia in Vancouver, actually just off the airport. It's just back here. So we're going to talk Jeep sound today. And most people think Jeep audio sucks. And for the most part it does, because most people aren't getting it configured quite right. So let's dive into the sound system of the Jeep Wrangler. If you don't want to go through the hassle and the expense of replacing everything and rebuilding from scratch, let me show you how to get the most out of what you've got in your factory Jeep audio system. Alright, so we're inside the Expedition Jeep. Trying to ignore some of my mess here. We're actually in the process of stripping to a certain degree and rebuilding with a back to basics approach that I'm starting to take with the Jeep and my adventures. It's easy to start throwing money into the thing and building a certain way, but it also makes life more complex. So let's get into the sound system here. We got tweeters. These are high frequency speakers. One on each corner. If you've got the newer Jeep, they're flush mount on the dash. All that means is you don't want to pile a bunch of crap around these speakers because they're high frequency. They need direct to your ears. So that's why the tombstones are positioned the way they are. That one there comes straight across to you. This one here will also come straight across. Passenger gets the same effect, but on the other side. Down in the bottom here, you've got what's called your mid-range speaker. Both sides, you want to leave those also open. There's not really a whole lot you could do to block those off anyway. Up on the roll bars, you've got a, for lack of a better term, or for layman's terms, an all-purpose speaker. It's like what you got up front here, a mid-range plus a tweeter all built in, plus a little bit of bass. For these speakers and your subwoofer back in the back, you'll want to pop those open and put what we'll call polyfill in there. Not polyfill as in drywall compound, but it's polyfill material, a polyester material that's typically found in relatively cheap pillows. You can go to Walmart, grab yourself a pillow, and tear it open and stuff this bar and your speaker box, your subwoofer box in the back, which is for low frequencies. Stuffing those, pulling that off of there and stuffing what you can of that material inside these boxes will actually help improve your sound quality. It reduces the standing waves that are in these plastic boxes in the back, the sound waves. So it helps eliminate some of the rattle and give you a nice, cleaner, crisper sound on the bass side of the frequency spectrum. So go ahead and do that. Pull those out, put in your material. I've already gone and done that. If you need some more guidance on that, I've got a link down below on the blog post that'll show you how that's done. You want to put a decent song on the radio that you know and has a good dynamic range between high frequencies and low frequencies, so you can adjust the settings on the radio as well as your balance left to right and your fade forward to back. First of all, before we start pushing buttons on our head unit, you need to understand the basics of what your sound system's trying to do, and that's trying to recreate you at a concert event, at a live band event. So you don't walk into a venue, go up to the stage, and then turn your back to that performer. You typically want to watch that performer. You want to see where the sound's coming from. You want to experience all that from the front. So a lot of people, they go into a car and for some oddball reason, they put as much sound as they can out of the rear speakers. And you don't want to do that. Let me show you. So we've got our song on the radio here. We're going to hit audio. And this is how I'm set up right now. It's been reset to everything in the center. It sounds fairly decent the way it is, which is all fine and dandy. But we want to remove a little bit of the sound from the rear and move it closer to the front. we want to do is have the rear speakers just give us a little bit of a fill in. We don't need a lot, just a little bit. So we're going to leave it set like that, maybe even one more down. Close to centered, but not quite. We'll give it a try there. We'll adjust our equalizer next and then play with this setting a little bit more. Going into the equalizer, so most people, they get their home stereo or their car stereo and they're cranking up the bass because they want to hear those low frequencies. So they're doing a setting that looks a whole lot similar to this, maybe. Given that U shape. Treble a little bit more. Given a U shape like that. And then away they go. So set up like this, the subwoofer in the back is working, it's doing its job. All the speakers are working and doing their job. But, and here's the big but, as you start cranking the volume up, those speakers aren't made to be handling the level of bass that you're shoving at it with it set like this. It's starting to distort. Those speakers are maxing out. The cone on the speaker actually moves to reproduce the frequencies that you're hearing, the sound that you're hearing. And you know, it might move just a little bit like that. On a subwoofer, it'll move a little bit more. But when you start hitting what's called the V max point, that speaker is pushing out and can't move anymore. So it's chopping off the sound and being distorted. We don't want that. So sadly, we do have to turn this down. Now what I've found is you can actually go back to -1, even a -2 point. Your mid-range speakers will help do a lot of fill-in of low frequencies, so we can turn those up a little bit. Treble we'll also leave turned up a little bit as well. So let's give that a try and see what we think. Go back to balance and fade, double check our setting there, we're all good. Got our song going, let's give it a crank. So it's hard to tell from the microphone I have on the camera and the camera itself, and then of course what you're watching on, or how, whether it's a mobile phone, your computer, whatever, you can't get the same effect as you can from sitting right here. But honestly, with those settings that I showed you, you can get just as much bass, nearly as much bass, but a quality sounding bass that's not going to rattle the plastic enclosures that these speakers are in. So play around with those settings, start with your bass maybe a little bit on the negative side, boost your mid-range, boost your treble a little bit, and adjust those settings accordingly. Again, you want sound coming from the front of your vehicle. Your component speakers are set up like that in the front because they're reproducing the sound that you would, it's recreating a sound stage in front of you. Direct your sound from the front. Put your best quality sounds coming from the front, so you boost your mid-range a little bit, boost your treble a little bit, drop your bass just to reduce the rattle out of these boxes, turn up your volume. You got lots of great sound there. I wouldn't take it necessarily to a competition and try and judge, although I wouldn't mind throwing it on a spectrum analyzer just to see what I get for frequency responses out of all these speakers. Let me know below what you got for some comments, any suggestions that you've done, things like that. If you want to share some crazy car audio builds, feel free.